let's look at this. Let's look at this chart, this exhibit. It shows the current and financial account uh, balances for the United States over 1992 and 2006. As we can see, um, there's a, like there is. It seems that there is an inverse relation between these two. In case of the USA, the current account has always been in deficit, and the capital account has always been in surplus. And whenever the current account balance is declining, it is perhaps offset by similar opposite trend in the financial and capital account balances. Okay, and this is actually, it's not unusual. This is typically what happens in most of the advanced countries. Like, there is an inverse relation between the two accounts. But before I discuss this into more detail, and I will show you an example where it may not always be the case. You see, I told you that the official reserve is also an important component of the balance of payments. It refers to the total reserves held by the official monetary authority, in most cases the central bank, uh, which is composed of major currencies, okay, that are used in international trade and financial transactions. Okay. In the United States, it is not a very large amount, but in China, it's few trillion dollars. I don't exactly remember, but I think it's $3+ trillion at this moment, which was only a few $100 billion 15 years back. Okay, so this foreign currency reserve, it is popularly known as foreign currency reserve, held by country or government. This is important, especially if a country wants to maintain a fixed exchange rate. You know, fixed exchange rate, we talked about fixed exchange rate last week. So if a country adopts fixed exchange rate system, it has to be ready to buy and sell foreign currency to maintain the the exchange rate at that rate. Okay. And if you remember, I told you last week that uh, between 1995 and 2008, the Chinese yuan was undervalued. The Chinese yuan was China used to adopt a fixed exchange rate system, and people say that, and there is actually evidence that Chinese yuan was undervalued. The Chinese government wanted an undervalued Chinese yuan so that they can gain an advantage in the export market. And now we told you like some advantages and disadvantages of that policy. So the advantage was an undervalued Chinese yuan ensured competitive advantage of Chinese export. But the dark side was that in order to whenever a currency is undervalued, that currency attracts foreign investment. Okay? So an undervalued Chinese yuan attracted foreign investment into China, which is a capital inflow. So when foreign currencies come into China, say US dollar is coming to China, there is an increased demand for Chinese yuan. If you let it to the market forces, like if there was no fixed exchange rate regime, then that excess demand for Chinese yuan would increase the value of Chinese yuan. Okay, but the Chinese government doesn't want that. And there was a fixed exchange rate. So whenever US dollar was coming to China, the Chinese government had to buy up all the US dollars from the market so that it can maintain the fixed exchange rate. Okay. Now, think about the opposite case. If a government wants to uh, maintain, if it, say, for example, currency of a particular country is devaluing over time, which happened in Sri Lanka, for example. So if the Sri Lankan government had a huge stock of foreign currency reserve, it could have simply bought US dollars from the market to protect the Sri Lankan rupees to fall. Okay, so that is why maintaining a foreign currency reserve can be very important for a country, especially for countries or for emerging and developing countries. It can be a very important part. And as I said, it is also a part of the balance of payment accounts. Okay, so we were actually talking about the inverse relationship between financial and capital account and current account. Okay, and we were saying that we give this example, we show that in the USA there was a current account deficit, but almost an offsetting amount of financial and capital account surplus. Okay, Germany and the Great Britain, they have similar pattern. In Japan, it's just the opposite. Current account surplus is matched by a financial account deficit. Okay, so this is normally what happens. However, there is an exception, which is China. Okay, for a long time, for fairly a long time, China has been enjoying a so-called twin surplus, okay, which means that there are both surpluses in current account and financial account. Why? Because primarily two factors. First of all, China has a huge advantage in the export market. It's the largest exporter in the world. Okay, so their current account is in surplus. So this current account surplus should be matched by or offset by an almost equivalent amount of financial account deficit. But there is restriction. There are restrictions on capital inflow. Okay, that's why we don't see an offset or equal amount of financial account deficit. Okay, there is a good discussion in your textbook. I will ask you to, I'll request you to go through it. Just remember one thing: whenever you go through these examples, you will see there are like specific examples, like what happened in a specific year, like in 2016, there have been changes in restrictions, there have been changes to the restriction on capital flows and so on. I don't want to memorize all those dates. Okay, what I want from you is a clear understanding of the economic, a clear economic understanding. So I want you to explain what happens, what's driving the surplus or deficits, and what are the impacts of the surplus or deficit. Okay, you don't have to memorize or remember all those dates and so on. Okay, So now I will stop. I'll take a break.